Hi again, everyone. Welcome back to English for Pinoys. My name is Eric. And in this video, we are going to talk about count and non-count nouns. So some nouns can be classified according to whether they are countable or uncountable. So those are the other terms for count and non-count nouns, countable or uncountable nouns. The truth is, in some languages there are no count nouns, like Japanese, for example. Even in our language, Filipino, we don't have count nouns. So what we do is, instead of making the plural form of count nouns, we add a determiner before the noun, like mga, right? So that's what we do. Okay, so what are count nouns? Well, as the term easily suggests, these are nouns that can be counted, right? So they have both singular and plural forms. Let's have some specific examples. Let's have document. So to form the plural of the noun document, you just simply add an S. So you have documents. However, for other count nouns, especially those ending with a vowel like table, you just add an S too. Okay? Table, tables. But for potato, if it ends with O, you add an ES. So potato is potatoes. And for family, you change the Y to I, and then you add an ES. So family, families. And then irregular count nouns like child. Of course, you cannot add an S to child to form the plural. You can't say child. So what we do is we add the letters REN. So that becomes children. Another example of an irregular count noun is mouse. So you cannot say mouses. The plural form of that is mice. So you actually change OUSE to ICE. Well, what about if it's a computer mouse? Well, quick trivia. For computer mouse, it's the same plural form. You also say mice. Okay, so if you have a lot of mice, you say computer mice, right? Same with louse. So you also change OUSE to ICE. So louse becomes lice. And then foot, then you also change the last three letters. Actually, the middle vowels, instead of double O, you have a double E. So from foot to feet. Now, singular count nouns can be preceded by the articles a, an, or the, or numerals, right? You can say 1 table, 5 children, 3 houses, and then a dozen documents. Now let's go to non-count nouns. So this is the opposite, of course, of count nouns. These are nouns that cannot be counted, and they have no plural form. Another term for non-count nouns are they are called mass nouns. All right, examples of non-count nouns are information. Doesn't have a plural form. You can add an S or whatever plural form you'd like to do with that. You can't, so you don't say informations. It remains information. Other examples, equipment. There's no plural form. Furniture, you don't say furnitures, although you can say fixtures, but furniture is always without an S. Knowledge, and then education. Now, certain quantifiers and the article the can be used before non-count nouns. For example, for equipment, instead of saying 2 equipments, you don't add an S. You cannot add a numeral before it. So instead you say the equipment or some equipment. Okay. Information, you don't say pieces of information, so you say pieces of information. For knowledge, you can say some knowledge, a little knowledge, a lot of knowledge, but you cannot say some knowledges. And then homework, you can say a lot of homework, but not a lot of homeworks. Now, non-count nouns can be abstract things. So when you say abstract, of course, these are things that you cannot see, cannot touch. They are in the mind. They are concepts. So advice would be an abstract thing. You cannot see advice. You can see advice being demonstrated, but you cannot see advice itself. Okay? So advice, you cannot say advices. That remains advice. Okay? Advice, education. Groups with individual parts like cash or luggage. Okay? So we'll explain that more later. Now, things with no definite form like gasoline or smoke, these are also non-count nouns. Natural phenomena, lightning. So you don't say lightnings. Weather, you don't say weathers. Ailments, like flu, diabetes, whatever. Subjects of study or academic subjects. So you say biology, physics. You can't say biologist, especially physics. It already ends with S. And also things that have tiny parts too small to count, like dust or sand, okay, or dirt. So these are things that have tiny parts too small to count, so they fall under non-count nouns. Other non-count nouns, activities. So you have the ing form. So this is what we call the gerund form, like swimming, walking, running. There's no plural form for that. You cannot say swimmings or walkings, right? Names of sports like golf, basketball, volleyball. So you don't say basketballs, volleyballs, unless of course you're referring to the equipment, right? The equipment that's used in the sport, like basketball, you can say basketballs, the equipment. But when you're talking about the sport, that is a non-count noun. Languages, okay? So English remains English, German remains German, unless of course you're talking about the citizens of that country. You can say Germans, right? You can say Chinese, right? You can say Americans, okay? But the language remains English, German, Japanese. Natural substances are also non-count nouns, like ice. You cannot say ices. And then air. You cannot say airs. Ailments. I think we've already talked about that. And then certain types of food and beverages, like rice and coffee. So you cannot say rices. You cannot say coffees. But of course, there are certain native speakers that say 2 coffees when they order coffee. They're actually referring to 2 cups of coffee, but that of course is very informal. So formally, coffee doesn't have a plural form. Okay, now let's go back to groups with individual parts. So we mentioned luggage earlier. So luggage is the whole, right? That's the group, and the individual parts of luggage are bags, backpacks, or suitcases, whatever. So that's what you bring with you. So you call them collectively as luggage, but luggage itself is a non-count noun. There's no plural form for that. You cannot say luggages, right? Same with baggage. You cannot say baggages. So that's the whole. And the parts of the whole, the parts of luggage, are usually count nouns. Like bag, you can say bags, you can say backpacks, you can say suitcases. Another example of groups with individual parts, let's talk about mail. So mail here, we're not talking about email, electronic email. We're talking about postal mail, or the slow mail, or the snail mail. So that's the whole noun, the mail, right? And it has individual parts. So what do you usually send through the postal mail? You send letters, physical letters, you send parcels, you send packages. So these are the individual parts that make up the word mail. So mail is a non-count. Again, we're talking here about postal mail, not the electronic mail. Okay, so the individual parts are letters, parcels, and packages. Okay, so quick review. Count nouns, once again, are nouns that can be counted. They have singular and plural forms. They can be preceded by the articles a, an, or the, and then numerals. On the other hand, non-count nouns are nouns that cannot be counted, and they have no plural form, and they are also called mass nouns. Certain quantifiers can precede non-count nouns, like some, a little, a lot of. And we're going to talk about that in part 2 of this topic. Alright, so make sure you stay tuned for that. In the meantime, if you found this video helpful, then give it a thumbs up, or if you haven't subscribed yet, then subscribe to the channel. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next one.